Hey everyone, this is amateur meteorologist Cameron Fry wishing you a happy new year. We have some exciting weather to discuss, so I thought I would kick off 2017 with a flash weather briefing. This is valid for today, Monday, January 2nd. Now, before I go into what the models, what guidance, what the ensembles are suggesting, I want to go over the state of the teleconnections. We'll start with the AO, the Arctic Oscillation here. You can see we've been very positive the past month. We were in negative territory late November, early December briefly, but for the most part, for the month of December, we were positive. And we look ahead in the next couple of weeks to see how the AO will behave or what it's projected to behave. We see it's going to rise a little bit, then plummet towards mid-month. You can see we've been on the decline for the last week. We're almost to neutral now. Um, but it looks like as we proceed in January, the AO is only going to get more negative, and we can see the same thing reflected with the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation. We've been in positive territory for the past month, but we're in a declining phase. We're going to go negative shortly, and we'll stay there for about a week. We'll rise again and then go back down towards mid-month. So you can see kind of a roller coaster pattern with the NAO. What's interesting about the NAO in conjunction with other teleconnections, you can see when we talk about the EPO, the PNA, a lot of these teleconnections are negative. Now, I'm not going to get heavy into what the PNA is or what the WPO is, or even the EPO, although I will say that for this winter, the EPO is going to be our primary driver, I think, more than the NAO. So when you see a negative EPO, that usually is a cold signal for our part of the country, and more on that in just a second. Real quick, just to recap, when I talk about the AO, I'm talking about the Arctic Oscillation. There's a positive and a negative phase to that. You can see with the positive phase here, your polar vortexes are stronger, they're tighter, and they're positioned closer to the poles, which bottlenecks the cold, keeps it trapped in that region. You can see the polar front across the Canada-U.S. border. Basically, a positive AO promotes mild Pacific air and a zonal flow, which means that the air is coming from the relatively warmer Pacific than the colder continental polar air. Contrasting, when we talk about a negative AO, we're talking about a weaker, more easily disturbed polar vortex, and that allows colder air to retreat southward and affect the eastern two-thirds of the CONUS, where on the west coast, you typically are milder than normal due to the East Pacific Ridge, as you can see. That's why I wanted to start off this video by reviewing the AO NAO indexes so we can see if they're in a positive or negative phase, because when both are in a negative phase, that promotes colder air into our part of the country, which increases the odds of wintry precipitation. Now, when we talk about the EPO, like the NAO or the AO, there's the positive and a negative phase, and similarly, a positive phase is not favorable to colder air in the southeast. You can see the large persistent storm in the Gulf of Alaska, which keeps that ridge from pumping warm air in the Pacific coast. And again, you can see the flow is mostly zonal, and it's pretty mild. It keeps that Pacific jet very strong, very active, and it dominates and overwhelms the pattern. But when a negative EPO is in play, it's similar in a way to the NAO in terms of where the cold air is coming from. And you can see it similarly, the ridge of high pressure with warmer aloft over Northeast Pacific. For the most part, with an EPO, you're talking about where that Arctic high sets up. And usually in that case, you have the cold access in the center of the nation versus the east. But we could still benefit from a negative EPO. And like I said, the pattern we're in, and not just for this week, but this overall winter, I think is largely going to be determined by EPO behavior. All right, let's check out some North American and European computer model data to see if we can deduce any hints as far as this late week storm. We'll start off with the Euro here. I believe this is the 0Z run. You can see the low over the panhandle of Florida. It's a 1008 low, and that's not a bad spot as far as your storm track is concerned if you want to get that marriage of cold air and precipitation together. When you look at I think this is the DEF set ensemble data, the majority of the runs put us, at least Middle Tennessee, in snow cover, mostly light and darker blues, and I think that those shades are probably more indicative of the amounts that we're likely to receive, mainly on the order of 1 to 3, 2 to 4 inches. Again, I'm not making that call. I'm just saying certain operational runs are putting that out this far in advance. Now the 0Z GFS is showing quite a bit of snow up north, not too far from here. This is valid a week from today. See that dominant snow axis is just about 1,500 miles north of here, setting up from St. Louis, going over to Louisville, Lexington, and West Virginia and DC, where we're on the southern periphery of your appreciable snow amounts, which to me, this is like a realistic map for Nashville, being that we're kind of right on that dividing line. But again, this is a computer model forecast only. You cannot take this verbatim, but you must take it with a grain of salt. Going back to recent Euro runs, sorry I meant to show this earlier, you can see Middle Tennessee is on the north side of that 850 0-degree mark. That's a good place to be. That means the cold air is likely to be in our favor, combined with a good storm track. All in all, this equates to an ankle-biting snow event of a couple inches, perhaps, maybe more on the Cumberland Plateau. So I got this off the American Weather Forum. You can see the last 4 runs of the GFS. This is a vorticity map, and you can see the placement of the ridge axis, the trough, the shortwave rotating through. The timing, there's subtle variances among these runs, and that's something that we're going to have to endure through the next couple days. Bottom line, small variances run to run can have vast implications as far as precip type, the timing of when the precip moves in, how cold air gets ahead of the precip shield, etc. All right, so let's do a forecast hour play-by-play off the 60 GFS. We'll start with tonight's system. You could see pretty potent storm coming through, some heavy precip moving into Louisiana. Maybe weakening a little bit as it moves into our area. Either way, we're not going to be in the core of the severe weather risk zone tonight. I think our friends in Alabama and Mississippi are going to get a brunt of the severe weather. But the air not that unstable here, so I think for Middle Tennessee we're going to see mostly rain and maybe a few claps of thunder to go along with it, but for the most part I'm not worried about it. We're just going to get some beneficial rain tonight, some isolated showers in the early morning hours, and then it's going to clear out. You can see our attention turns westward with the short wave getting back together over Colorado, and while we're clear, if you watch the placements of the highs and weather setup, you see one dropping into Oklahoma and Arkansas here, and then it's going to advance a little bit north of us. The placement of those highs are very important, but either way, it looks like we're going to get some colder air moving ahead of the precip shield by the time it arrives, and at least according to the 6C GFS, the precip starts as snow and will ultimately end as snow. But the main things I want you to see here is that we have favorable high pressure placement in front of the precip, and also note the low track off the 60 GFS, very similar to what the Euro was showing with that low cutting across the Panhandle, Florida, up the East Coast. Another thing worth mentioning is that 1040 high situated in southeastern Canada moving into the northeast. That's going to act as a 50-50 low, which is going to give us some additional blocking, which is going to be really beneficial for us in terms of locking in that cold air. So we'll see. We're still far out, but still, I'd like to see low track agreement with the Euro and GFS as far out. It gives favorable amount of confidence anyway. Now with 60 GFS, you can see the totals are extremely high. Carolinas, North Georgia. I don't buy that at all, but the axis for the south of here. It's interesting to note the contrast with the 0Z GFS with the main axis cutting across Kentucky. So you just don't know. If you take the average, you get it right across I-40. So let's start takeaways. Number one, it's looking more likely we're going to see snow flying Friday through Saturday. I know that's vague, but I just want to point out confidence is increasing. Number two, it's still way too early to forecast amounts. We're still 5-6 days away. Still, number three, I have a bold prediction, and I can get away with it being an amateur. And based on everything that I've read, observed, considered, analyzed, I think this is going to be our first ankle-biting snow event of the year, 1 to 3 inches higher amount from the plateau. I would err on the more conservative side, maybe an inch or two, based on how things are looking now, and that could certainly go up. We saw that winter storm Jonas back in January. But speaking of Jonas, I do not think this will be a repeat of Jonas. So for those hoping for 8, 10 inches, a foot of snow, I don't think it's going to happen. And anytime you're 5 days away from potential snow event, err on the light side, not the heavy side. Whatever the case, regardless of how much snow we actually get, it's going to turn much colder Thursday through Monday with highs on the order of 10 degrees, 12 degrees below average. So it's definitely going to feel like winter the second half of this week into early next week. Anywho, that wraps up today's weather briefing video. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave any comments or questions in the comment section below. Look forward to keeping you guys ahead of the storm. Regardless of the outcome, I think we could all agree this is going to be a very thrilling week of weather for Middle Tennessee.